Good day, good people. Alex here again. Welcome to another one. Let me open up my computer. Today we're going to be discussing tech debt, and it's going to be a fairly short video, so let's get started. Today's video we're going to be talking about the cost of tech debt, a cost of building code in unprincipled ways, in quick ways, in neglectable ways, a cost of tech debt and process neglection. That's what we're going to discuss today. As you can see, some of the comments the developers are going to say. Let's rewrite it all. Let's refactor it from scratch. Oh my god, who wrote this code? Those are very common things that we can hear amongst developers, especially less experienced ones. So what is a tech debt? As you can see, it's a cost of additional work caused by building code in unprincipled ways, building code either by people who are not competent enough yet, juniors, or building code in a very careless way, just so it works, so you can move on with your life. As you can see, the biggest problem with tech debt is that it incurs interest over time, meaning more you neglect it and more stuff you build on top of it, more expensive and more difficult it's going to be in the end to actually improve it. So more tech debt you accumulate, more interest it accumulates, and then more difficult it is to fix it later on. Why tech debt happens? In my personal experience, tech debt usually happens because of competence reasons. That's why knowledge gaps, as you can see here, is marked as blue. So that is the core reason. And then combined with unclear requirements, maybe lack of time, lack of understanding of management, this amplifies even more, which then results in even more unoptimal code. But I think in my experience, most of the time, tech debt happens due to lack of knowledge, lack of or knowledge gaps. I think that all of the other points that you can see on this list are very dangerous in a way, because one of the most common fallbacks that we developers have whenever we make a mistake, instead of acknowledging maybe lack of knowledge at a certain point in time, lack of understanding of certain things, we will usually attribute the fault to management, to business pressure like quick deliveries and stuff like that. But very rarely you ever going to hear a developer being open-minded, being self-aware, being critical, self-critical, and saying, look, when I was implementing this, my knowledge was not so, I wasn't knowledgeable about this technology. I was learning it, which is completely fair as well. Sometimes, we inherit a new stack or we install a new library. We have to fail a couple of times before we succeed a couple of times, right? But it's very rare that you're going to hear a developer actually being honest about it and saying, look, we will improve this and we're going to improve it over time. We're going to actually discuss that soon. And I have made a mistake and that's fine. So we're going to discuss that. The vicious circle of debt. So as you can see here, the biggest problem of tech debt isn't necessarily the code itself. It is the frustration that it causes amongst the developers. Your developers are the most expensive resource in your company. If they are frustrated, then this circles back with more debt, because a bad code base opens up possibilities for even more bad code because of certain type of people that we're going to discuss in the next slides. But in simple words, more debt you accumulate, there's a higher chance of more debt being piled on top of that because of very pessimistic or very strange characters that some people have. I call them doomsayers, and we're gonna discuss that in a second. So as I just said, the core result, the core output of tech debt is sad and a lonely developer. A developer that's not motivated, inspired, becomes careless, inefficient, becomes blocked. There are certain things that maybe a developer wants to do, but they can't because simply the architecture doesn't scale well enough for that to happen. Which leads us to the next point, reactive pessimist doomsayer. This is the term I invented when I was making this video, and it came genuinely from my heart because some people are just like this, negative, reactive. They're very good at talking, very good at complaining, very good at bashing other things, but they're very bad at actually doing something about anything. So they're good at suggesting things without action. They're good at pointing things that don't work and why. They're good at bashing people before them, how terrible developers they were. but they lack one fundamental understanding of why they were hired in the first place, is to make things better. So when it comes to tech debt, you want to avoid people like this. You want to avoid hiring people like this. If you are a developer watching this or a tech lead, you identify such a person, you have to make sure that you enforce a culture of positive thinking, culture of optimism, culture of, if you see that something doesn't work, fix it instead of complaining about it, which leads us to the next one, which is proactive optimist. But before we go there, let's just go back to the doomsayer for a little bit. So you can see the doomsayer usually lacks any self-awareness. So this type of person will never take any responsibility for any of that tech debt or any mistakes. It's always someone else's fault. And even if it's their own fault, they will attribute that to something else. Oh, I didn't have the time. Oh, I did this on Friday afternoon or something like that. So people like this have no self-awareness, have no respect for anything else. They're always great, and it's always someone else's fault for whatever that happened. They usually advocate complete rewrites because they think they're so confident that if they wrote this code base, it would just be great. It's just if you just give them time, everything would be great, which of course it wouldn't. It would probably be even worse. So this type of character you have to annihilate from your organization. You have to make sure that you promote different culture of people who actually proactively try to make things better, who talk with each other, who have empathy, who understand that code bases go through different stages, companies go through different stages, startups especially go through very rough stages with limited resources, limited people, friends coming in for a few hours helping with this and that, so, and etc. etc. So who do you want to hire? You want to hire a proactive optimist. You want to hire a person who understands all of this, who is senior enough, who is mature enough, who understands that our job is to build products, it's to cooperate with other developers. We understand that we have different skill sets, different interests, different motivations, and this person enhances code all the time. They might be building completely separate feature at the moment, but they will stumble upon a file, they will take 10-20 minutes to improve that thing. They will find something, I don't know, missing types. Let's say they're gonna add types. They're missing a unit test, they're gonna add it. So this is being professional and being proactive. This is a person who is autonomous. This is a person who doesn't need acknowledgements, doesn't need permissions, doesn't ask for permissions. They naturally are built up as professionals who by nature build things and by nature they improve things. They're action-oriented, as you can see. They prioritize doing over discussing, and they apply iterative approach. They understand that a software is a living thing. It's a thing that's never finished. It's a thing that at times gets worse and then it gets better. And this is the type of persona you want to hire. What are the solutions to this? Well, the first thing before you approach tech debt, you first have to understand what the issue is. So why are you accumulating the tech debt? Is the organizational issue? Is your organization failing to acknowledge that there are problems and that they need to devote time to it? Is it a competence issue? Do you have too many generalists who maybe don't know enough? Do you need to hire a person in a certain area that knows more, that's more specialized at that thing? What is the issue, right? What is the actual problems that you have? Is it a developer experience issue? Are your developers literally desperate because they can't do anything? When you answer these questions together in a workshop, when you share, when you're open-minded, you then define the solution. So what is the plan to tackle this? You cannot just say, let's rewrite, let's refactor. That's impossible. That's very childish, very immature, very unrealistic. You cannot go to your CTO and say, let's rewrite. Rewrite what, right? Do what? What is the outcome? So you have to have a plan. Where do you start? Where do you end? What does require refactoring and what doesn't? What is the outcome of this? So let's imagine we take this time, which is going to cost probably €1 million or €2, time-wise and salaries. Why are we willing to spend €1 million of time and money to this? What is the outcome? Who will be happy after this? Developers, customers, both. How much time will we save long term if we do this? Our developers are going to be able to print features 3 times faster. So you need to come up with what are the outcomes of this. And then how are you going to measure this? So say that you now persuade your CTO or CEO that, okay, we're going to spend now 6 months of doing some huge overhaul. What it is that, how do we know that it's going to work? So how do you measure this, right? All right, then the time. So how much time do you devote for tech debt? Generally, most organizations that have relatively stable code base, 20% of time should be sufficient for you to spend improving things, fixing regressions, going back to the features you implemented, just cleaning up some stuff. If your code base is in a really bad state, I don't know, you've been just a startup that finally succeeded, you got your first round of money, and the whole product was built by a single person that was time constrained, knowledge constrained, you probably need 50% of time. So you need to devote 1 or 2 persons, half a week to just stabilize things. Investing in this is very good, it's very smart, because you're gonna then enable yourself to move a lot faster. Because if you remember at the start of this presentation, as I said, tech debt accumulates interest over time, which means more you neglect this, more of a rabbit hole it's going to become. So if you identify, is your software in a bad state? If it is, you must fix it, you must spend in the time. Let's summarize this. So tech debt, the worst side effect of tech debt is developer experience, developer happiness. Your developers, again, are the most expensive resource. You want to make sure that they're happy, inspired, motivated, so they can perform their tasks. Hire the right people, hire the proactive optimists, build a culture around actions, around doing things, reward people who are proactive, reward people who are autonomous, reward people who come up with proposals and solutions and they're actionable, so they put, their money where their mouth is. Code is a living thing. Code changes over time. A code is never complete. Code gets worse and better and worse and better. Invest sufficient time in your product, into maintaining it, keeping the things afloat, alive, keeping the things floating, as we call it. And this whole circle of things, you will have either very happy developers and happy customers, or you're going to have people who are oblivious to things, who are demotivated, who are just piling up more stuff on top of it because they just don't enjoy working there. That's it for today, guys. Let me close my computer. I hope you learned something new. Tell me, what do you think about tech debt? How is your organization doing? What are the challenges in your organization? And let's maybe discuss it in the YouTube comment section, and let's discuss it in my stream. I wish you best. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in another one. Cheers. Bye-bye.